copy of that poem when I was a student in Berkeley, and won a poetry prize. And anyway, that was important to me as, you know, as studying French and doing that book, and so it was interesting to hear that part and the stuff of the daily. Anyway, what a pleasure to be here. Thank you. It's a beautiful space, and I'm deeply pleased and honored to be the first person to read in here. Is that right? In your, what should we say, the aegis of Counterpath, or Robert's Productions? Is that? Yeah. So it's great. Look, the wall. I can see what you mean about wanting to have Bob Rainier's work here, and
that'd be
beautiful. Yeah. If we could do something about the framing. Yeah, because he has all of these things, and they need to go somewhere so they can be seen by people. Yeah. So. I'm going to read from the most recent work that I've been doing, and I'll tell you a little bit about it, and maybe after we talk some more about it, as well as Avenue B. I'm sorry that one of the books that was published by Avenue B isn't here. It's not all of the books, although there aren't too many more. One of them, an interview with, collected interviews with Ted Berrigan, was one of our books that went out of print right away because we should have published twice as many. I think we published 500 or 1,000 and went out of print, so that's no longer. I have a few copies left, but the most recent book was called Real, and is one of the long manuscripts that I've been writing. They're now 3 books of 474 pages, written in this daily poems, one of which is Real, and the other is Portraits in Repetition, written before that, started in the late 90s, 98 it began, and went into 2000s. So it's like two plus years. About a year and a quarter. And then Real, and then there's a third one called Cloud Ridge, which is online, available at Google Web. And then I continued and began to write 1,000-page books, and so there are 3 of those now complete. The first one is called Human Nature. It's also on Google Web. And the second one is called Remarks on Color Sound, which has just gone up on the Eclipse website. Craig Dworkin, who teaches at Utah now. And then the third one is called Temporality, which is I've been putting up on a blog. So it's available online. I've started in May of 2009, I think, to put those up. So there's 600 or something. And that just was finished on January 4th. So on January 5th, I continued on to this next new work, which now I'm just simply calling Temporality 2. I don't know what it's going to be, but the form really in these poems has not shifted. They all look like this on the page. They're sculptural. The line lengths are always the same. There's always 3 lines. I'll just tell you a little bit about the shape because you might be interested. There's always 3 lines in the first unit with 2 commas. There's always 2 couplets in the midsection, or I suddenly thought it could be called the centerfold. The first has 1 comma and the second has 2 commas. And they're always the same length. The first line is always this long, and the second line is always this long, and they're, the first line is the same length as the second line. And this is in Courier typeface, so I'm not shifting, I'm not justifying the margins, I'm making the lines come out. It's an equivalent spacing text, like Larry Eigner's work, if you know that. And so, in the adjustments of handwriting these lines in the notebook and then adjusting them on the computer to make them come out. And this material in the center section is found language from readings that I do in various books. And the last 2 lines are always the same length, and there's 1 comma. And the first and the last lines you'll see come from observed material in Bolinas. All of these poems have been in Bolinas, because I haven't traveled anywhere since early, 1st of December is when this begins. And the last 2 lines are also things seen in the world. So you'll hear how this works anyway. probably too much about that. I'll read, yeah, I'll just read this and we can move on. So, and they all have a number at the beginning, which looks like it's the day, and there's a kind of a break, an abstract numerical thing. 12:1. Orange edge of sun above black branches of trees, white curve of moon by leaves in foreground, sound of wave in channel. Equation formed by addition of equal, for example, in relation to it, physical form, the same system, silver line of sun reflected in channel, waning white moon in cloudless blue sky. 12:2. Pink-orange of clouds above still black plain of ridge, red-tailed hawk calling in foreground, sound of wave in channel. Pattern of forms, the canvas, greatly reduced scale to flatness, curvature of physical plane, meant, silver of sunlight reflected in channel, whiteness of gull flapping toward ridge. 12:3. Light coming into clouds above shadowed plain of ridge, red-tailed hawk calling in foreground, sound of wave in channel. There the sky, some of what, for instance, position today that has lasted, so long that time, gray-white clouds reflected in channel, shadowed green pine, tip of sandspit. 12:4. Gray whiteness of clouds above shadowed green ridge, motion of leaves on branch in foreground, sound of wave in channel. No sooner than reversed, it is moving toward past of and, means to conclude that, always the same, gray-white clouds reflected in channel, whiteness of gull gliding toward ridge. 12:5. Orange edge of sun below black branches of trees, shadowed green leaf on branch in foreground, sound of wave in channel. What is concealed, meaning that there would then this place, even if picture has always some time, gray-white clouds reflected in channel, whiteness of gull gliding toward point. 12:6. Gray whiteness of fog against invisible plain of ridge, red-tailed hawk calling in foreground, wave sounding in channel. Orthogonal form, for example, follows from the same uniform motion, equivalence of moving bodies, one, gray-white clouds reflected in channel, wingspan of gull flapping toward ridge. 12:7. Pink cloud in pale blue sky above still black trees, silver of planet by branch in foreground, wave sounding in channel. Vision adjusted, horizontal surface of picture of flatness, sensation of what is meant, is therein, gray-white clouds against top of ridge, shadowed green pine on tip of sandspit. 12:8. Gray of rain cloud in front of invisible ridge, red-tailed hawk calling on branch in foreground, sound of waves in channel. Line of a thing if put, pen and ink on wove paper. That is not this. What part showing what? Thought, silver of sunlight reflected in channel, cloudless blue sky to the left of point. 12:9. Light